Hello everyone, and welcome back. There's a unique kind of pain that comes from letting go of someone you once held close, not because the love is still burning strong, but because deep down, we know it had to end. Today's video dives into a question many of us have felt in the quiet aftermath of goodbye. Why do breakups hurt, even when they're necessary? It's a feeling that catches us off guard. We think that doing the right thing should bring relief, and yet, there's an ache that lingers. A strange mix of sadness, relief, guilt, and longing. This isn't just about heartbreak in the romantic sense. It's about the quiet mourning of what could have been, what once was, and what never will be. Let's explore this together, not just with our minds, but with our hearts. Because the pain of letting go isn't a sign of weakness. Sometimes, it's the quiet proof of how deeply we once cared. Part 1. The ache of letting go. We often imagine that when something is necessary, it should come with a sense of peace. That when we make the right choice, especially in matters of the heart, there should be closure or at least clarity. But breakups rarely offer that clean break. Even when we know, without a doubt, that leaving was the right decision, the pain still cuts deep. And that's because relationships are not just logical agreements. They are emotional ecosystems, messy, beautiful, and tangled. The first reason it hurts is simple, yet profound. We're grieving a shared story. It's a series of firsts. The first time you laughed together, the first time you felt seen, the first time you said, "I love you." These moments become stitched into the fabric of our days. So when the relationship ends, it's not just about losing a person. It's about losing the version of ourselves that existed in their presence. It's the death of a future we once imagined. Even if we no longer wanted that future, it still hurts to watch it disappear. And what's even more complicated is that pain doesn't always wait for permission from reason. You can know all the reasons the breakup had to happen. You can list the arguments, the incompatibilities, the wounds that never healed. But logic rarely comforts the heart. Because love, even when it fades, leaves behind echoes. And those echoes don't vanish just because we've walked away. They linger in memories, in quiet mornings, in the way we instinctively reach for our phones when something good or bad happens, before remembering there's no one to send that message to anymore. There's also something very human and very vulnerable in the way we form attachments. We don't just get used to a person's presence. We shape our routines, our thoughts, even our identity around them. So much of who we become in a relationship is intertwined with the rhythm of another heart. When that rhythm is gone, we find ourselves in unfamiliar silence. We may even question who we are now, without that mirror reflecting us back. And here's another layer of the pain. We feel guilt, even when we shouldn't. When a relationship ends, especially if we're the ones who made the decision, there's a heavy emotional burden that can follow. We may wonder if we gave up too soon, if we tried hard enough, if we failed to love them in the right way. The mind replays memories like an old film reel, focusing not on the painful scenes, but on the warm ones, the laughter, the tenderness, the shared dreams. And that selective memory can trick us into romanticizing the past, making the breakup feel like a betrayal of something beautiful, even if it was also deeply flawed. But perhaps the most unsettling truth is this: we can still love someone and choose to leave. We grow up thinking that love is enough, that if you love someone, you stay. But in reality, relationships require more than just love. They need trust, respect, alignment in values, and the ability to grow together. Sometimes, love is there, but everything else is falling apart. And choosing to walk away from someone we love because we've outgrown each other, or because the relationship is hurting more than helping, is one of the hardest, most courageous acts we can do. But courage doesn't erase the ache. It simply means we've chosen pain with purpose. Another reason the pain lingers is because we often don't get full closure. Not every ending comes with a clear explanation or a mutual understanding. Some breakups are messy. Words are left unsaid. Questions are unanswered. We're left with fragments, wondering how something that once felt so certain could unravel so completely. And that lack of closure leaves space for imagination, and imagination is often unkind. We start building stories in our minds about what they're doing now, if they're hurting too, if they've already moved on. It becomes a form of self-torture, yet we can't stop. Even when closure is offered, it rarely satisfies, because no matter how many times someone tells us why it didn't work, or how sorry they are, it doesn't undo the emotional investment we made. It doesn't give us back the time or the effort, or the parts of ourselves we poured into the relationship. And let's not forget the body's role in all this. Heartbreak is physical. Studies have shown that emotional pain activates the same regions in the brain as physical injury. That tightness in the chest, the loss of appetite, the fatigue, it's real. Our nervous system doesn't distinguish between the pain of a breakup and the pain of something more visibly traumatic. In some ways, a necessary breakup feels like a wound we chose to inflict on ourselves, and that's what makes it so hard to process. Emotional grief, especially from something like a breakup, is real and valid. Other people may expect us to move on quickly, to get over it, to act like we're fine, but internally, we're mourning. Sometimes that mourning is private, invisible, even dismissed, but it doesn't make it any less painful. There's also the loneliness, not just the loneliness of being single again, but the loneliness of emotional disconnection. We lose the one person, the one who knew our daily routines, our quirks, our worries. Suddenly, there's a gap where intimacy used to live, and it's not easy to fill, because while friends can comfort us, and new people may eventually come along, there's a rawness in the immediate aftermath that feels unshareable, like no one else could possibly understand the very specific ache we carry. And finally, perhaps the most delicate wound of all, we fear we may never feel that way again. That kind of connection, that intensity, that shared world. Even when we know the relationship wasn't sustainable, there's a small voice inside whispering, what if that was it? What if I don't find something like that again? It's not just about missing them, but about mourning a chapter of life that's now closed and fearing we'll never find one that feels as meaningful. The pain of a necessary breakup is a quiet kind of tragedy. It doesn't come with fireworks or dramatic endings. It's subtle. It creeps into songs we used to love, into routines we now do alone, into the space beside us in bed, where there is only the echo of what used to be. And yet, we endure it. We survive it, not because we're heartless, but because somewhere deep within, we know that even the most painful endings can carry the seeds of something new. Part 2. When healing feels like breaking. There's something paradoxical about heartbreak. The more necessary the breakup, the more it can torment us afterward. It's as if doing the right thing emotionally punishes us before it ever brings peace. And this contradiction teaches us something important, that emotional healing doesn't follow logic. It follows its own slow rhythm. One reason we struggle so deeply after a necessary breakup is because we crave resolution in a world that often offers none. When something breaks, we want to fix it. When something ends, we want to understand why. But some relationships don't end with dramatic betrayal or explosive fights. Sometimes, they simply wither. The love becomes quiet. The connection fades, or we realize we're growing in different directions. And those endings, the gentle ones, can feel the most haunting, because there's no clear villain. There's just silence, and questions that echo into that silence. We find ourselves replaying conversations, analyzing glances, wondering whether one more compromise, one more effort, might have saved it. But perhaps what hurts most is realizing that sometimes, love alone truly isn't enough. And no matter how much we cared, we couldn't force a connection to thrive if its roots were no longer strong. We are biologically wired to attach to others. From infancy, our survival depends on bonding with caregivers. As adults, romantic relationships tap into that same attachment system. That's why breakups can feel like emotional withdrawal, like a part of us has been ripped away. It's not just about missing a person, it's about a kind of internal panic. What do I hold on to now? Even if the relationship was filled with tension, or slowly eroding our sense of peace, it still represented familiarity, and the human heart clings to what's familiar, even if it hurts. So when we walk away, we're not just leaving behind a person, we're stepping into the unknown. And that unknown, no matter how necessary, is terrifying. Another layer of pain comes from the hopes we secretly kept alive. Even in struggling relationships, there's often a quiet hope in the background, a belief that maybe things could turn around, that something might shift, that with time, patience, or healing, the spark would return. Letting go means letting those hopes die. And grieving hope we dared to hold on to in silence, can feel more painful than grieving the person themselves. Sometimes, we also grieve not just for the relationship we had, but for the version of ourselves we were in it. Maybe we were softer, more open. Maybe we gave more than we ever had before. And in the aftermath, we feel like we've lost a piece of our own identity. Breakups often strip us bare. They leave us standing alone, asking, who am I without this love, without this version of myself? And this leads us into another hard truth. Healing after a necessary breakup involves facing ourselves. It's no longer about us, it's about me. Our wounds, our patterns, our fears. There's no one to distract us, to fill the gaps. We're forced to sit with everything we avoided. And that kind of emotional honesty can be brutal, but it's also the first step toward growth. This is also why some people move on quickly, not because they're stronger, but because they're afraid to sit with themselves. They run into new distractions, new affections, anything to avoid the silence left behind. But healing, real healing, asks for patience. It asks us to walk through the grief, not around it. There's also the social pressure that surrounds breakups. People ask questions. They make assumptions. They wonder what went wrong. And when we say, it just wasn't right anymore, it rarely feels satisfying to them or to ourselves. We live in a culture that often celebrates love stories, but has no real language for necessary endings, especially those that don't come with scandal or drama. So we feel isolated in our grief. We feel like we're supposed to be okay because we were the one who chose to leave. But emotional pain doesn't care who ended it. It only knows what was lost. And here's something we don't talk about enough. The guilt of healing. When we start to feel better, even just a little, a strange guilt can creep in. We wonder if moving on too quickly means we never really cared. We question whether it's okay to laugh again, to flirt, to imagine a future without them. It's as if our happiness betrays the memory of the relationship. But healing isn't betrayal. Healing is the gentle act of choosing life again, after something inside us has broken. We also carry grief in unexpected places. Certain smells, songs, or even street corners can hold memories like ghosts. One random day, when we least expect it, the pain resurfaces, not because we want them back, but because we remember a moment when we felt whole. And that memory, sweet as it was, now belongs to a time we can never return to. That ache isn't weakness. It's simply the cost of having lived something deeply. And what about closure? We chase it like it's a destination. We think if we could just have one more conversation, or understand their point of view, the pain would soften. But closure isn't always given. Sometimes it has to be created. It's the process of saying to ourselves, this is over, and I may never fully understand it, but I still choose to move forward. It's a form of emotional maturity, grieving without all the answers, and slowly, the pain begins to change. It doesn't disappear overnight, but the sharp edges dull. The longing turns into gratitude for the good times. The regret becomes a teacher, and one day, almost without realizing it, we stop looking back as much. We begin to live again, not as a person who was broken, but as someone who broke open and grew stronger from the cracks. Because even in heartbreak, there is beauty. The beauty of having loved courageously. The beauty of choosing yourself when it was the harder path. The beauty of learning that our worth was never dependent on another person's presence. And the quiet, powerful beauty of discovering that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering in a new way. When we allow ourselves to feel the full depth of a necessary breakup, we open the door to transformation. Pain becomes a portal, and beyond that portal, there is new strength, new wisdom, new softness, new beginnings. Part 3. Loving yourself through the end. In the aftermath of a necessary breakup, what we often don't expect is how much of our inner world begins to rearrange itself. It's not just about moving on, it's about unlearning, rebuilding, and in many ways, relearning how to be in the world without the emotional anchor we had in that person. One of the most overlooked aspects of breakup pain is how much our identity was intertwined with the relationship. When two lives are deeply connected, we naturally begin to define ourselves not just as individuals, but as part of a shared we. We build habits together, we form rituals, plans, a rhythm. So when that ends, we're not just grieving a person, we're grieving a version of ourselves that only existed in that specific relationship. That us no longer exists, and in its absence, we're left with questions. Who am I now? What do I want when I'm no longer compromising or adapting for someone else? That redefinition can be liberating, but it's also incredibly disorienting. The person we were in love may have brought out parts of ourselves we cherished, our vulnerability, our creativity, our tenderness, and the fear is that without them, those parts will disappear too. But in truth, those qualities are still within us. The person simply reflected them back to us, and now it's our turn to reclaim them on our own. There's also the aching reality that emotional closure is often a solo journey. The other person might not provide the answers, the apology, or the acknowledgement we crave. And even if they do, it may not feel like enough. The healing we long for can't be handed to us by someone else. It has to be grown within us, over time, with patience and self-compassion. This is why breakups can become such pivotal emotional turning points. They strip away the distractions and noise. They force us to sit with our patterns, our unmet needs, our longing for connection. And if we're brave enough, they offer a mirror, one that shows us where we need to heal, not just from the relationship, but from everything that came before it. Because often, the breakup reopens wounds that predate the love itself. Maybe we realize we tolerated emotional neglect because we were used to it. Maybe we discover that our fear of abandonment has shaped the way we attach, or that we've been chasing validation instead of real connection. These insights hurt deeply, but they also offer a path forward, a way to stop repeating the same stories, to build love from a place of wholeness rather than fear. There's also a subtle form of mourning that comes with letting go of someone we once saw as home, because no matter how necessary the ending, that person held a space in our lives where we felt safe, or known, or simply not alone. And when that space closes, we're left searching for a new emotional shelter. We try to fill the void quickly, with distractions, with work, with someone new. But the truth is, the only lasting refuge is within ourselves. This is where solitude becomes not just a phase, but a teacher. In the quiet, we begin to hear our own voice again. We learn to soothe ourselves, to rediscover joys that don't depend on anyone else. It's not always graceful. Sometimes it's messy and slow, but it's real, and it's ours. We also come to realize that some people are right for our hearts, but wrong for our lives. This is one of the most painful recognitions, that someone can make us feel deeply, can touch our soul in beautiful ways, and still not be someone we can build a future with. Love, though powerful, doesn't erase fundamental differences in values, goals, communication, growth. Letting go in these situations isn't an act of giving up. It's an act of honoring both yourself and the other person by not forcing something to fit that no longer does. In time, we may even feel gratitude, not in the forced, everything happens for a reason kind of way, but a deeper, earned gratitude. And for the understanding that healing isn't linear. Some days will feel like progress, others like regression, but every day we choose not to go back. We are healing. And yes, we may still miss them. Certain songs will still sting. Places might still hold memories that catch us off guard. But that doesn't mean we made the wrong decision. Missing someone is a natural part of love's aftermath. It doesn't mean we should have stayed. It means we were brave enough to love fully and brave enough to walk away when that love no longer served our growth. Eventually, we start noticing something gentle unfolding within us. We start to hope again. Not the kind of hope that clings to the past, but the kind that reaches quietly toward the future. We begin to imagine love again, a different kind, one rooted in deeper self-knowledge, clearer boundaries, and a softer, stronger heart. And when that love eventually arrives, it won't erase the past, but it will honor it, because we'll know the cost of staying in something that wasn't right, and we'll also know the value of walking away, even when it hurt. That kind of love won't ask us to abandon ourselves to be loved. It will meet us where we are, whole and imperfect. In the end, breakups hurt, even when they're necessary, because we are not made of stone. We are wired to bond, to hope, to build futures in our minds. Letting go means letting a version of that future die. It's a death without a funeral, a goodbye without an audience. And yet, it is one of the most honest forms of love, because sometimes the deepest respect we can offer another person and ourselves is the courage to walk away when staying would mean losing ourselves. So if you're hurting right now from a necessary goodbye, know this: the pain is not proof that you made the wrong choice. It's proof that you loved with depth, that you showed up fully, and that you had the strength to choose what was right over what was comfortable. Thank you for being here, for sitting with this conversation, for opening your heart to its tender truths. If this video spoke to you, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more reflections like this, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs. Until next time, take care of your heart, and remember, healing takes time, but it also brings you back to yourself. See you in the next video.